I've been recently submitting music and stuff just to different feedback groups and whatnot and
Mm.
submitting to lyrics and stuff. And the constant feedback that I'm getting is, oh, yeah, this sounds professional. This sounds great. So through the program, I actually feel like those issues that I had finally got resolved.
Awesome.
After years of troubleshooting and years of being frustrated, I finally am like, cool. Like when I finish a track and I finish the mix, maybe there's like a few tweaks here and there, but it's it's ready to go.
Sweet. So before you joined the Artist Launchpad program, what was the main things that main challenges you had before you joined?
So my biggest challenges for sure were making sure my production was up to par and that my mixing was definitely subpar. So coming into it, I needed to find out where I was going wrong. And I feel like I got it through the program for sure.
Yeah, because you already had a pretty high production value, like the sound design was like pretty on point and some of the layering and like just your sound selection in general, like it was all like pretty high tier. But there's just like little bits and pieces of like some of the frequencies and like top end and like low mids and stuff like that that needed tweaking. But you were able to push past like very quickly, and I noticed you were able to consistently finish all the exercises. Like most people
Mm.
actually struggle being able to do a high volume. Like a lot of the times people would only show up with like three or four of the exercises instead of all five, but you were always like very consistent with that, I noticed.
Yeah.
How did you, what did you feel like, sorry, how did you, what was your experience with the exercises? Because, I haven't really seen any other programs or coaches do anything like that in terms of like
Mm.
doing a lot of the recreation stuff like that. What did you find out about that?
Honestly, I loved it because I've worked with mentors before. I worked with other people that would listen to my track and would kind of go through the song, and it would be like, oh yeah, like add some frequencies here, add like this layer of a bass here, or add this kind of synth here. And I didn't really understand the concept, so
Mm.
actually recreating the song like back to back with a professional production, actually I could audibly hear where my issues were. So instead
Mm.
of having this kind of like, okay, I kind of know when to add a bass because I did it on this song because this producer said so. Now I was like, no, I know exactly where my issue is. So instead of like kind of guessworking it, I could actually listen to it and see exactly what I needed to fix.
Yeah, and plus you can also, if we go back on that board where we wrote down all the data, like you can visually see the improvements like over time. A
Yeah.
lot of the issues that you had at the start weren't there later on. You can just like visually see that.
Oh
And
yeah.
I think it's important to do stuff like this because it takes you out of the whole feedback loop. If you're going to other people for feedback, oftentimes, like the way you just explained it, oftentimes
Mm.
you're getting little breadcrumbs on, oh, you should tweak this, tweak that, but then you become almost dependent on the other people for like
Right.
validating whether you should finish or not. But
Mm.
it never really helps you figure out what the underlying problems are, though, like what actually
Right.
gets you to that point, like why that problem's there. So I think
Yeah.
like the more analysis basis stuff is what will figure out what those underlying problems are, so people can kind of
Mm.
trust themselves a little bit more. Because
Yeah.
I mean, me personally, I used to be very dependent on other people's opinions on my tracks for like feedback. For sure, I
Yeah.
was very dependent. But do you
Yeah,
feel
well,
like now? Yeah, sorry, go
because
on.
that just that whole process completely cleared up my issues because going into it, like my two biggest things were are my issues with my song, my sound design, or is it my mixing? And through the
Mm.
process, I figured out, yeah, it's both. There was like
Yeah.
things about both of them because it was like, okay, I'm not layering enough uh on like my mid basses and sub bass or like top basses, and then
Yep.
like my saw is like, okay, yeah, they sounded good, but they weren't full enough, and it was because I had like maybe one or two layers, and that was
Mm.
because of one of the first mentors I had. His whole concept was you should have as few tracks as possible. So when you're doing, but he was like a tech house producer.
Right.
So tech house compared to melodic bass is two completely different
Mm.
worlds when it comes to production. So yeah, no, it really honed in on what I needed to fix.
Mm. Yeah, and
That
did you have any skepticism before you joined the program, being like what is this going to be about or anything like that, or whether this
Yeah, I
would
mean,
work?
I feel like I kind of always do
Hmm.
because I mean I joined other programs, I'd had other mentors, I did yeah, I mean when you're looking for answers, you kind of like run around as much as possible and trying to find as much as you can
Hmm.
without like enrolling back into university. But even going through university, 90% of the time they're like, yeah, here's how you mic up a rock band. I'm like, okay, that's not that's not what I'm looking for.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. And what was the biggest thing you felt like you got out of the entire thing?
Well, this is something I was talking to my wife about the other day. I've been recently submitting music and stuff just to different feedback groups and whatnot, and
Hmm.
submitting to labels and stuff. And the constant feedback that I'm getting is, "Oh yeah, this sounds professional. This sounds great." So through the program, I actually feel like those issues that I had finally got resolved
Awesome.
after years of troubleshooting and years of being frustrated. I finally am like, cool. Like when I finish a track and I finish the mix, maybe there's like a few tweaks here and there, but it's ready to go.
Fantastic. And so if anybody's watching this video that might be on the fence about checking out Industry Set, what would you have to say to them?
Oh, 100% worth the investment. If you're serious about music and you're serious about getting your music to top quality, top tier sound, whether it's sound design or with mixing, it's just this process has completely solved it for me.